Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Today on the program,
the president warns of a possible ISIS attack.
Just like Iraq, Syria, maraming inosenteng taong nadadali.
Hoping that the Philippines will be spared from the terror group's barbaric acts.
Talagang ako nagdarasal. Talagang lumuluhod ako sa Diyos.
Also declaring martial law in Negros Oriental to end lawless violence.
We have to determine the facts before you can make any statement whether that will fall under a state of lawlessness or a state of rebellion.
And concerns over Chinese warships passing through Philippine waters. Armed Forces of the Philippines spokesperson Brigadier General Edgard Arevalo joins us live.
thank you for joining us. Sitting in for Pinky Web, I'm Ina Andulong. President Rodrigo Duterte warns of a looming terror attack to the country, possibly perpetuated by international terrorist group ISIS. Time and again, Mr. Duterte has warned that Filipinos should brace themselves for dangerous times ahead, even as the military confirms the presence of foreign terrorists in the country. Amid this backdrop, will the armed forces push for martial law in Negros Oriental to curb lawless violence, or recommend another extension of martial rule in Mindanao? Also, despite some friction in diplomatic relations, Beijing is still eyeing 3 strategic locations in the Philippines as economic and tourism zones. Let's go straight to the source of the story. AFP spokesperson Brigadier General Edgard Arevalo. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Ina. It's a pleasure to be here. Good morning to all our televiewers.
Let's start first, sir, with what the president was saying last night. He basically, again, warned of a looming threat of ISIS in the country. At sabi niya, he's been praying practically to make sure or to ask that the situation doesn't worsen. Let's listen first to what the president said last night.
Just like Iraq, Syria, na maraming inosenteng taong nadadali. Talagang ako nagdarasal. I'm praying. I really pray. Talagang lumuluhod ako sa Diyos na to spare us the kind of brutality and cruelty in our country, because it will really be bloody.
Sir, hearing that, how serious is this threat of ISIS on the part of the AFP? Is this a cause of concern?
Well, kagaya nga na nabanggit ng ating Pangulo, no? And based from the previous reports that we had, the recent one was in the area of Basilan and Sulu. Indeed, this is a serious threat, but be that as it may, what we're trying to tell our people with regard to the recent report that we received and that was made known to the public, this is still subject for validation and verification. But what is important for our public to know is that your armed forces is not taking this seated. We are coordinating with our agencies of government like the Philippine National Police and other intelligence and security related or relevant agencies so that together we could look into this, verify this. That's the first point that we would like the public to know. Second is we would like to tell the public that they should continue with their normal lives, with their routine activities, not to be prevented or deterred by this report that is yet to be validated. But what is the third and the most important thing is we encourage our people to help us to actively participate in this fight against terrorism, because definitely this is not just the job of the AFP or the PNP or other intelligence and security-related agencies of government. Security is everybody's responsibility, because at the end of the day, it will be all of us, no, who is going to be affected. So mahalaga yung kanilang active participation. Lalong-lalo na itong mga binabanggit na lugar are places that are normally visited by our people.
Sir, this is not the first time that the president actually warned of itong ISIS. It's been a while, as early as last year, sinasabi niya na ito. Is there anything that might have prompted the president to again talk about this and warn the people?
Well, because paulit-ulit ang report. Ano? At may mga pangyayari na in the past, sabi nga nila, it's better to err at the side of caution. No? So itong lahat ng ginagawa natin, not to be an alarmist, but we cannot take things for granted. SOP ng AFP yan, na i-validate ang ganitong report. So now that the information is out to the public, ang responsibilidad ng AFP, ginagawa natin. We are unrelenting in our intelligence gathering and security operations, hardening of targets, so to speak, yung alam natin na really susceptible sa mga ganitong klaseng pag-atake. Subalit sabi nga natin, and we admit that your AFP cannot be in all the nooks and crannies of our country. Yung mga komunidad, kung saan kilala nila more or less ang mga tao, ito yung mga kadalasang staging area ng mga terorista. Doon muna sila pumapasok, they try to blend with the community. But of course, ang ating secret weapon dyan ay yung ating mga kababayan because kilala nila ang mga tao.
Sila yung makakapagsabi.
Opo, sila ang makapagsasabi. Bagong mukha, kahina-hinala ang kilos, pero sana wala yung attitude na walang pakialam.
Okay.
No? They should report this.
Coincidentally, sir, you just confirmed that an alert memo was issued to warn of alleged terror attacks in northern Luzon, but you did say also that these information are still being verified. Pero ano na ang status ng verification? I saw yung alert memo na leak,
Tama po.
basically. It was not mentioned there kung anong specific terror group ang posibleng tinitingnan. But is it also ISIS?
Yes, it is ISIS group.
Okay,
also.
so ano ang status ng verification
Sa ngayon,
natin
so far, sa mga nakita na natin, it's negative. No? But again, let us, and we should never let our guards down. Just like what the President was appealing, not only to God, but to our people, basically, for us to be together in this fight, because terrorism will thrive only when there's apathy among us, and we'll really not care about what's happening around us.
Okay, let me read to you, just for our viewers, yung portions po nitong alert memo. It says, an information received by this command, referring to the Northern Luzon Command, states that a Crusader city with business centers and Crusader churches in Northern Luzon is being targeted for terror attack. Crusader cities is a used term by ISIS in describing target areas to fuel what they call Bandar Crusade, or a war between Muslim and Christians, while Crusader churches in their generic term for all historic Catholic churches. You talked about target hardening,
Yes, opo.
sir. But you also said negative. So, doon na ba natatapos yun, this alert memo?
Opo. Sa ngayon,
Negative, sabi niyo yung verification.
initially, sa ngayon, so far nakikita natin it's negative. As I said, we should never let our guards down. Patuloy ang ating pagmamonitor. Alam po ninyo, hindi ito isang snapshot lang that stands still over time. Nag-evolve ang situation, nagde-develop ang mga situations around the country. So kailangang bantayan natin. For instance, sinasabi natin, ang focus ngayon ng armed forces ay dito sa Jolo or Sulu province, sapagkat because of our vast and porous borders, talaga pong challenging yan para sa atin na may nakapapasok through the so-called southern backdoor ng mga foreign terrorist fighters. Subalit ang mahalaga po rito ay namomonitor natin ito, nababalitaan natin, and appropriate actions are being taken to the point that combat operations are there upang ma-address natin militarily itong mga threats nato and confine them in Sulu where we know they are, and in Basilan. And then dito po sa Central Mindanao, ito pong mga grupo ni Abu Turaife, siya yung ISIS inclined group of the BIFF. Yan po ang kinakandak nating operation ngayon at dyan ang ating focus. But apart from the combat operations that we're doing, which are, by the way, surgical, intelligence-driven, ina-emphasize po natin yan because much as the threat is serious and real, hindi po tayo pwedeng magtawag din na ginagawa, sinasabi nila na all-out war. What we have to do are really surgical operations.
Sir, you talked about confining these elements basically in Mindanao.
Yes.
But then, yung alert memo na lumabas actually identified areas, obviously, in Northern Luzon din. Let me name them: Lawag, Vigan, Manawag in Pangasinan, and Tugigaraw. Now, these are areas which have not been targeted before. Is this an possible indicator that hindi na po contained yung ISIS in Mindanao, in the south?
Maybe yes or maybe a no. It could be their means of diverting our attention to. Para sa ganun, yung focus natin, ma-diffuse nila, dito naman tayo lumipat. Dito napakahalaga ng ating intelligence operation and intelligence information sharing, not only between and among government agencies, but even our friends and allies abroad. Tumutulong sila sa atin sa pagbibigay at pangangalap ng informasyon, the way that what we gather and what we were able to collate, inihahati naman natin sa kanila. So sa kabuuan, ang importante dito, nakakasagap tayo ng ganitong informasyon, ibig sabihin nagtatrabaho.
So yung mga residente dun, sir, dun sa mga areas na binanggit ko, do they have anything to worry about at this moment?
Well, as we were saying, dapat tuloy lang ang kanilang buhay because the moment they stop doing their normal routine, tagumpay na sila sa aspeto pa lang ng pananakot. No?
Okay.
Pero habang sinasabi natin ito, sinasabi na natin sa kanila na kailangan maging actively involved tayo, maging vanguards tayo ng peace and security dun sa area natin at wag po yung attitude na walang pakialam na hindi ko naman concern yan. Security yan, concern ng pulis at militar yan. Hindi po ganon. Sapagkat sabi nga natin, if you're going to spell the word security, it's not going to be complete without the you. So it's everybody's concern.
Okay, we'll be taking a short break first. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, AFP spokesperson Brigadier General Edgard Arevalo. We're still talking about, of course, the threat of terrorism in the country. Now, the Secretary of National Defense, Delfin Lorenzana, says he's hoping to neutralize the threat before the year end. Let's listen to what he said about that.
Huge operation going on in Pulo to flush them out and to finally stop this babusaya.
And you're hoping to neutralize them as soon as when?
We were giving them 3 months to 6 months for the whole of the rest of the year. Huge operation.
Kaya ba yun, sir? Is that doable? Also, I understand you're monitoring some foreign terrorists in Mindanao. Yung huli po ninyong sinabi, there are about 7, I believe. Can you give us an update on that as well?
Well, sa ngayon, yung ating monitoring, nanduroon sila sa area ng Sulu at yung binanggit natin kanina in Central Mindanao. So we are closely monitoring them. And sabi nga natin, they can always run.
Are they a growing group ba, sir?
Doon, ang information natin, nandun sila sa area na yun, in the vastness of the jungles of Sulu. That's why nandun nga yung focus natin. A sizable number of our troops are there, pati na yung mga assets natin, may mga barko, aeroplano tayo na dinivote natin dyan. And what the Secretary of National Defense was saying, kasi in every plan there has to be a timetable. So yung 3 months to 6 months is realistically a period wherein we will be able to address this particular threat. But again, sabi ko nga, napakahalaga po palagi ang cooperation ng ating community because sila ang pangunahing sources natin ng information.
So you mentioned we have our troops there. A significant number of our troops are there. But what's the biggest challenge in going after these terrorists?
Well, the biggest challenge pa rin po is yung kanilang ability to blend with the community. Kagaya na pabalita, most of them are Asians, Malaysians, Indonesians, and alam naman natin, they look very much like Filipinos. And some of them were even able to learn the dialect. They can even speak the language. So very important and key dito is yung pakikipagtulungan ng ating mga civilian, ng fellow Filipinos doon sa community, which we should be happy to note that they are significantly contributing to the gathering of information. Kung kaya nga, hanggang sa ngayon, namomonitor pa rin natin ang kanilang paggalaw. But of course, hindi naman natin sila pwedeng puntahan in one location because they are also moving every so often. But sabi ko nga, they can hide but they cannot run all the time.
Okay, moving on now, sir, to yung martial law in Negros Oriental. The Palace Malacanang has said that the President may soon use his emergency powers to address a spate of killings there. But Secretary Lorenzana said he doesn't see the need for martial law in Negros Oriental. Hiningi na po ba ng Pangulo ang recommendation ng AFP tungkol dito?
Sa ngayon po, I have spoken to our Chief of Staff, General Benjamin Madrigal Jr., and he said that so far we have not received any task to conduct our own consultation and render our recommendation. But thus far, what we can tell you is that situation has relatively has improved relatively as compared to the initial days kung saan nagkaroon ng...
Can you tell us what made you say that the situation has improved? The latest data, at least 20 people were killed in July.
Yeah, but that was around 2 weeks ago, yung huling insidente. And so far, wala pang nangyayari. It's because we are actively into it. we are assisting the members of the Philippine National Police in this particular regard. Meron din tayong sariling kinakandak na operation laban naman sa mga teroristang NPA who are behind this killing. We would like to take it to the context that this is the prerogative of the President to declare martial law as enshrined in the Constitution. And among those, of course, the basis for such declaration will be the recommendation from the AFP. And we just cannot
Pero
blame...
wala pa.
Sa ngayon, wala pa. We cannot blame the President if he has spoken tough about this because the way these policemen were killed, it was like an ISIS style of killing, and any commander-in-chief will definitely use his power in order to quell this terrorist threat posed by these NPA rebels.
Okay. Now on China naman, sir.
Sure.
Can we get an update on the Chinese warships that crossed the Sibudu Strait in Tawi-Tawi without informing us? On the part of the AFP, what do you think? What does that say about their intentions? Kasi ang sinasabi, pinatay nila yung radars nila so that they can pass through our waters undetected.
Well, unang-una, they claim that to be innocent passage. And under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, innocent passage is all right. No? It's the right of any owner of a vessel, whether a landlocked country or coastal state, na payagan ang isang barko nila na dumaan by way of an innocent passage.
Pero kung pinatay ang kanilang radar, the Secretary or Secretary Lorenzana said, no, deception.
That's what I'm about to point out. Ano? And by process, allow me first to tell you what the process should be. Dapat meron silang kinukuhang diplomatic clearance para sa atin. And it passes through the Department of Foreign Affairs, the Department of National Defense, then to the AFP and to the Navy, kung saan sila ang mismong makaalam dapat kasi it will pass through our waters. In this particular case, obviously, much as they switch off their automatic identification system, then they do not want to be detected. And they obviously did not seek for diplomatic clearance, at least from where I sit, because it passes through DFA and the Department of National Defense. I am with the AAP, so probably if there are, just in case, then we just don't know that. But the automatic identification system is supposed to be an application which will tell us, by just pointing on that vessel, it will give an automatic rundown or description as to what that vessel is.
Okay. So you mentioned...
if you switch that off, then we will not be able to determine and identify what is that vessel, what kind is that vessel, and other nomenclature and specifications of that vessel. So if you switch that off, then the chances are you really would not want to be detected. But of course, they will not go undetected. Nakita sila ng ating mga tauhan, and appropriate reports were made and pushed upward, upang sa ganun malaman ng ating decision makers, and the rest is like filing of diplomatic protest is already for them to do.
Going back to my question, sir, then, again, why would they, I mean, sa Navy, right, why would they want to be undetected? What does that say about their intentions in passing through that area?
Well, we are supposed to learn that in that diplomatic protest that we're supposed to file, which is beyond the ambit of the armed forces of the Philippines. And from there, we will know and we will determine what will they say. But basing from the circumstances surrounding this
ginagawa nila
passage.
doon kung ayaw nilang magpakita sa atin?
Well, those are the things that they should explain that to us about, and for us to treat this as a matter of security that we have to look into.
It's a security concern.
It's a security concern, definitely. Pero sabi nga natin, hindi naman yan nakalalagpas na monitor natin yan, and then we were able to report it, and the rest will have to be done by our political leadership.
Okay, we'll be taking another short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, AFP spokesperson Brigadier General Edgard Arevalo. Going back to what we were talking about, the Chinese warships that passed through our waters undetected, let's listen to another statement from the Secretary of National Defense about that.
It's for security reasons also for the Philippines. Because even all other countries, the US, Australia, or England, or whatever, they inform us that they are passing. But this time, the Chinese did not. It's not a criminal violation, but it is just a failure to observe
Like protocol?
courtesy, protocol or common courtesy.
Considering what happened, sir, although nasabi ninyo, no, even if they went under the radar, nakita pa rin sila. But
That's right.
is it possible that this is not the first time that maybe dumaan sila doon tapos hindi natin na-monitor before?
Okay, tama yung ginamit mo na term kasi kanina sabi mo undetected. They were detected, no? So it's possible na dumaan sila na hindi natin nakikita. It's possible, no? But the fact that we have been monitoring their movements and we have reported this kasi hindi naman lahat na may ma-monitor tayo at makita natin. We are going to announce it to the public. What is important is we are constantly doing our job, which is maritime security patrols, be it by air or by water. Ang mga nakukuha nating informasyon, hindi lamang dyan sa Cebu to Passage, maging dito sa area ng West Philippine Sea, sa Scarborough Shoal, lahat yan, lahat ng namomonitor natin with our regular maritime domain awareness patrols. Nire-report natin yan sa political leadership natin para maging references or basis nila for whatever actions our country has to take in the field of foreign relations.
You mentioned earlier, sir, you're hoping that China would explain it
Yes.
kapag sinagot po nila yung diplomatic protest
Yes.
that we filed. But the thing is, our officials have been saying that despite the many diplomatic protests that we've been filing, China does not really respond to these protests. So how optimistic are you really that you will be getting a satisfactory explanation from the Chinese?
Well, challenge yan para sa AFP, but what we can tell you is that is beyond our job already. Kailangan po dyan yung ating political leaders sila makipag-deal dyan, but kami sa armed forces, we could assure our people that we're there, we're monitoring, we're not sleeping on our job, we're always on our toes at lahat ng information na mag-gather natin, sinusupply natin sa ating political leaders upang sa ganun sila ang gumawa ng mga necessary na hakbang. Because, the armed forces is just an instrument of national power. Kung ano po ang task sa atin at mission na ibigay, that we will do and do religiously.
Okay, now Chinese tourists naman tayo, no? Some Chinese tourists were seen in Palawan taking photos of our naval facilities there. Your thoughts on that? What do you think about these Chinese tourists? Kasi Malacanang also earlier said, expressed concern over the rising number of Chinese tourists in the country. Do you see them as a security threat for now?
Sa ngayon mukhang nakakabahala na, parang nagkaroon ng confluence of all these incidents to really see it as a national security concern. But this particular one that you were asking us about are purported tourists. Binibisita nila yung katabi ng tinatawag nating Oyster Bay, which by the way is a headquarters to some of our naval units like Special Operations Group of the Navy. Nandyan din co-located yung Coast Guard. Pero ang binibisita nila ay yung tinatawag na Mitra Shrine, which is in itself really a tourist destination.
So it's possible that
Magkatabi.
innocently.
It's possible, no?
Okay,
Pero,
but what are you looking at? There are other possibilities.
yes. Lahat ng ganito na may security implication, as we have been telling you, is a matter na may SOP tayo. That's why what we did, nung nakita natin ito, is to approach these purported tourists, ask them as to why they're there and what they're doing. And they were kind of saying that they were there because they are tourists and they're visiting a tourist destination. So apart from that, talking to them, we don't have really a basis as to what illegal, unlawful things that they're doing. So we allowed them to go after this initial conversation that we had. But apart from that, in steps more beyond that, we made coordinations with the local tourism agency and local city tourist in charge to exclude this particular part of that Oyster Bay, of that tide pole in Puerto Princesa as among tourist destinations, and to give appropriate briefing to the tourists visiting our countries as to what demeanor or restrictions that they have to observe with regard to installations like this, which happen to be just adjacent to a military installation.
Okay, but sir, nasabi nyo, nakakabahala na rin, you mentioned.
That's right.
Yung influx of Chinese tourists, actually, Presidential Spokesman Sal Panelo was outright asked, sir, are we looking at possibly yung spying factor of the Chinese tourists, nationals coming in? Is that something you're also looking at? Is that something that you want concerned agencies to look at as well?
Yes, posible, lahat yan. Sabi nga natin, kailangan pagka nasa security at nasa intelligence ka, kailangan may pagka-suspicious, kailangan itong mga ganitong activities, developments, dapat na monitor natin yan. And we have reports, no, na natatanggap and observations ourselves na indeed dito nga sa area ito, dito nga lang sa may Eastwood, malapit sa Camp Aguinaldo, marami nag-report sa atin na marami silang na-observe dyan.
Ano yung observations
Na maraming mga Chinese nationals doon sa may area.
But yung actions nila, ibig sabihin,
But
their
yung actions
demeanor,
nila,
are they suspect or ano po ba?
sa ngayon, wala naman tayong nakikita na ginagawa nila na sukat nating ikabahala, security-wise, sa ngayon, ano? But yung, sabi ko nga kanina, yung confluence ng mga iba't ibang incidents na to, talagang kailangan nasi-securitize na yung issue. But again, sabi natin, lagi taming nagtatapos dun sa punto na we have our job to do and we're doing that. Other aspects of it like Bureau of Immigration, Foreign Affairs, and documentation of these visitors that we have in our country are all part, and that's beyond the ambit of the armed forces. What we do is we monitor this development, we make appropriate assessments and recommendations, and pass it up for our political leaders to decide.
Okay, last question, sir. Yesterday, there was a story that came out saying that Chinese investors are looking at the development of 3 strategic islands in the country, gagawing economic, tourist destinations, and these islands are supposedly strategic, especially for the military, and some are saying China might be using this to advance their geopolitical agenda. Is the AFP maybe going to make any recommendation on this? Would you maybe try to stop yung development na ito considering these concerns?
The issue as to whether these are strategic of strategic importance sa atin security-wise is not debatable. It's a no-brainer. Talagang may security implication yan. They are of strategic security importance para sa atin. And on our part, nagsasagawa tayo ng sarili nating pag-aaral. We came up with our own recommendations and we're going to pass that forward to our, again, political leaders. We are confident that they are looking into this, they are studying all aspects of this, because we believe that much as we have to look at the economic aspect of it, we should never forget and set aside the security implication that these developments may bring to our country, security being our primordial concern.
So
Pero
it sounds like parang you might want the government to reconsider allowing Chinese development there. Is that right, sir? Sabi niyo, may i-recommend kayo and you
Yes.
want our officials to consider yung national security. So
Yes.
are you inclined to maybe...
Yes, we are inclined to give that recommendation, considering the strategic value and importance
na
of
wag
this.
ituloy?
Kung maaari, balansehin ang pangangailangan natin in terms of economy at pangangailangan natin o consideration na dapat nating ibinibigay due importance sa seguridad ng ating bansa.
Okay. Thank you very much, AFP spokesperson Brigadier General Edgard Arevalo. Thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Ina Andolong, sitting in for Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.